Hello, beautiful people of the internet. How are you doing today? My name is Jackie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video, I am going to talk about all the books I read in the month of August 2023. Unfortunately, I think my August wrap-up is going to be one of my least successful reading months that I've had in a long time. Possibly ever, because I did not read a lot of pages and I did not give a lot of high ratings. At this point, I'm in like my Taylor Swift anti-hero moment being like, is it me? Am I the problem? Am I just too hard to please? Why is it that I was disappointed by almost all of these books? I guess I was just having a bad month. I don't know. In the month of August, I read exactly 1,600 pages, and my average star rating was an even 3 stars. And yeah, on a scale of 1 to 5, 3 stars is not bad. When I give a book 3 stars, that means like, I thought it was good, it was fine, but it didn't absolutely knock my socks off. So that's not terrible, but when all of the books you read in 1 month average out to 3 stars, that's not a spectacular month, to say the least. Anyways, let's just dive into my August reads. First up, I read North by Northanger, the third Mr. and Mrs. Darcy murder mystery by Carrie Bebris. And I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars. Now, I don't know if objectively speaking, this book is the worst in the series so far. I gave the first 2 books 3 stars, and I do feel like those books did have some major flaws. But I think the reason I gave this book a lower rating is because it was the one I expected the most from. I heard that the series got better after the first 2 books, so I went into this one with high hopes, and those hopes were just not met. This series follows a married Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy after the events of Pride and Prejudice and sees them continually having to solve murders and other assorted crimes in Regency Britain. This book has a bit of crossover with Northanger Abbey, another Jane Austen novel. In this book, Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy have traveled to Bath, and they receive an invitation to visit Northanger Abbey. They are invited by Captain Tilney, who tells Mr. Darcy that their late mothers had once been friends, so he claims he is extending this visit just as a sign of friendship, but Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy soon begin to suspect that something is up with their host, and he might have invited them there for nefarious purposes. One of the things I do really enjoy about these books is how the author writes Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy. I feel like, by and large, she writes them very true to their original characters, and I enjoy the interactions between them in these novels. However, I was just disappointed by this one because, once again, the mystery plotline did not wow me, and I think the disappointment was increased since I went into this book expecting for it to be my favorite in the series so far. I also was very disappointed because even though this book features characters from Northanger Abbey, the heroine of that novel, Catherine Morland, never appears. I really wanted to see Catherine, even if it was just for one scene. So that was a massive disappointment for me that she doesn't appear in this book. To be honest, I don't even think there's a reference to her. No, there is one passing reference to her. But even if she couldn't physically appear, I would have liked a little bit of an update on how she's doing, you know, how is her marriage to Henry, does she have children? And I didn't get that, so that was very disappointing. I probably will continue the series, particularly because I really want to read the one that Emma and Mr. Knightley appeared in. And also, even though these books are not all-time favorites, they are very easy to read. So if you're looking for a short, quick, little, murderous Pride and Prejudice fan fiction, then this series is for you. Next, I read A Twisted Love Story by Samantha Downing, and unfortunately this was another 2.5-star read for me. I was really torn about what to rate this, so I ended up going with 2.5 stars, because I didn't think this book was necessarily like actively bad, but it was disappointing because I've quite enjoyed all of Samantha Downing's other books, and this one was just my least favorite of hers so far. This book is a thriller that follows Wes and Ivy. Wes and Ivy have had a very toxic on and off relationship for years. Neither of them are very good people, and they are certainly not good for each other. But when a police officer begins sniffing around in an event from Wes and Ivy's past, the two of them may need each other if they want to get away unscathed. Samantha Downing is one of my favorite contemporary thriller authors. I've really enjoyed all of her books previously, but this one was a bit disappointing for me. One of the things I love about Samantha Downing's books is how she writes these twisted, unlikable characters so well. Really, none of the characters in her books are good people, but they are always interesting. I felt like in this book, the characters did not really pop for me. I wasn't that invested in what was going on in the story. I felt like the book was a bit too long. I think it was pushing like 400 pages, which for a thriller is pretty long. And there were certain points where I kind of felt like we were just not making a lot of progress in the plot, and I felt like it was a little slow for a thriller. Like, I didn't really feel like anything happened that was that exciting. And I don't think the book like was offensive in any way. It didn't do anything egregiously wrong. It just wasn't that exciting, I'm sorry to say. I do really enjoy this author though, and I will keep reading her books in the future. You can't win them all, and this one was just personally a miss for me. Next, I DNF'd an ARC. Ugh, this sucked, but I DNF'd Lilith by Nikki Marmee. Thank you so much to the publisher Alcove Press for giving me an electronic version of this book on NetGalley in exchange for an honest review. Ultimately, I just feel like this book ended up not being for me. I was really excited for this book because it was compared to Circe by Madeline Miller, which is a book I absolutely adored. This is a feminist myth retelling following Lilith, who in Hebrew mythology was the first wife of Adam before Eve. I do think this book had some very nice writing in it. There were some very good turns of phrase or very vivid examples of imagery, which I did enjoy. But plot-wise, I felt like it wasn't in accordance with my personal taste. I was kind of confused about what was happening. I don't know if the book started in the right place, in my personal opinion, because it starts with Lilith and Adam and Eve in Eden, and their relationship is not going well. But I didn't really understand how they got there. I was just having a hard time understanding what was happening, what time period it was supposed to be, and I didn't really understand like how Lilith got into the situation that she was in. I didn't really connect with her as a character. This book also had a lot of anachronistic language that would not have been used in ancient times. Some examples that I wrote down in my Goodreads review: the phrase "no way," mumbo jumbo, and clown. Some examples of words that were used in this book, which according to Merriam-Webster were not known to be used before like the 18th or 19th centuries. So that really took me out of the story, because she would use this word or phrase and I would be like, that doesn't sound right. Basically, to sum it all up, the reason that I DNF'd this is because even though there were some instances of very nice writing, I felt like I couldn't get immersed in the characters or the story, and that's why I ended up not finishing this book. Next, I read Last Call at the Nightingale, the first Nightingale mystery by Catherine Shellman. I ended up giving this 3 stars. This is a historical mystery set in New York in the year 1924. Our main character, Vivian Kelly, frequents a speakeasy called the Nightingale, but when a person turns up dead in the alley outside the Nightingale and Vivian discovers the body, she starts looking into it to figure out what is really going on. Things that I liked about this book. I did like some of the characters. There is a very diverse cast in this book, and some of the characters I did enjoy. This book does have a little bit of a love triangle, and I am not a huge fan of love triangles. Is anyone really? They're really one of the most universally disliked fiction tropes. However, the caveat is I did not absolutely hate this love triangle, because Vivian, the main character, is what we would call bisexual, and so she has a love triangle with a man on one side and a woman on the other, and that made it just a little bit more interesting to me. I loved the bisexual representation, and I didn't feel like it fell into that very cliche love triangle where there's this female character who is just torn between 2 mediocre men with like no personalities. I liked that even though this is historical fiction, it did have a pretty diverse cast of characters. I think my biggest problem with this is I think the book spends a lot more time developing the Nightingale itself and the characters who frequent the Nightingale rather than the actual murder mystery. I felt like sometimes that fell more to the wayside, and once we, really started getting close to the end and things started to be revealed, it was kind of clear, where the author was taking it, in my opinion. So I did like several things that this author had going on here. I just felt like the mystery storyline itself should have received more attention. I don't know if I will continue reading this series or not. There were several things I liked about it. I just don't know if I liked it enough to realistically make reading the sequel a priority going forward. I do think at some point I will still give this author's Lily Adler mysteries a try to see if I like those better. Now for some slightly better news, I gave 4 stars to Death Comes as the End by Agatha Christie. This is a standalone historical mystery by Christie that takes place in ancient Egypt. It follows several members of the same extended family. There is a father, 3 sons, and a daughter who has been recently widowed, as well as 2 daughters-in-law, the father's mother, so like the grandmother of the kids, and then the kids who are married have several children of their own. So it follows all the members of this household, and there is a lot of tension because the father, who his wife died many years ago, he returns from a business trip with a new concubine in tow, which the family is not too keen about. And shortly after he brings this concubine home with him, members of the family start to die, which causes a lot of fear, chaos, and suspicion. All in all, I enjoyed this one. I really liked the ancient Egyptian setting. It was something different that I've never read about in a historical before. I didn't guess who the murderer was. It was not my top suspect, but at the same time, I wasn't like absolutely shocked that that was who done it. So I thought it was a good reveal, but not one of Christie's all-time best ones. I think I don't have my Agatha Christie ranking in front of me at the moment, but I think if I had to put this on the list, I would put it sort of around Sparkling Cyanide, where I think this is a good book. I don't know if 2 years from now I'm going to remember everything that happened in this one, but I enjoyed it. And finally, I read The Satapur Moonstone, the second Perveen mystery novel by Sujata Massey. This was another 3-star. This is part of a historical mystery series that follows Perveen, who is a female lawyer in British colonial Bombay. In this book, Perveen is hired to help the English, I don't remember the name of their agency, or if it was actually like a real historical agency or something the author made up. But basically, she's hired to help the English with this job where the English are trying to negotiate with these widowed Maharanis. So basically, this is a Indian princely family who have come to an agreement with the English colonizers. And the current Maharaja is a young boy, and the young Maharaja's grandmother wants him to stay in India to be educated. But the boy's mother wants him to go to school in England. And so they're coming in to like try to negotiate terms between these two women, but they need Perveen because the two women live a life in seclusion, and they think that they'll respond better if they have a woman to come in and help them with this situation. I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about. I mean, like, I'm trying to explain the whole situation as best I can. And through the course of taking on this job, Perveen ends up meeting the Englishman Colin Sandringham, who will become her love interest for later books in the series. When she arrives in Satapur to talk with the royal family, she learns that 2 previous Maharajas died under suspicious circumstances, and so the current Maharaja's mother, part of the reason why she wants to send him to England is because she believes if he stays here in Satapur, someone might kill him. So, things that I liked about this book. Like I said with the first book, I really love the setting. I think it is very interesting and well written. I also liked the character of Colin Sandringham. Colin is also disabled. He lost one of his feet. I believe one of his feet was amputated after an accident, and so I loved that disability rep with our main male character. I think the reason I only gave this book 3 stars is I did not love the mystery plotline in this one. I think kind of like Last Call at the Nightingale, this book focused more so on like the characters than it did on the actual mystery, so there wasn't a huge amount of suspense. There were also a lot of characters in the royal court in Satapur, and sometimes I had a hard time remembering who was who because some of them I felt like weren't super well fleshed out, and I had a hard time remembering, like, do I really need to meet 3 handmaidens of the Maharani? Like, I don't remember which one is which. So that was a little bit hard. I also felt like when we find out who the bad guy is, the standoff climax was a little bit melodramatic, you know? So that was not my favorite either. I should also mention that this book does involve the death of an animal, and I don't know about you, but personally, when animals die in books, that is even more upsetting to me than when people die. I don't know what that says about me. I do think I will continue the series because I did quite like the first book, and based on the Goodreads reviews, it seems like a lot of people who read this series felt similar to me about this one, where like this second book was not their favorite, but I still think it would be worth it to continue reading the series and see where the future books go. So everyone, that is what I read in the month of August. Yeah, a few disappointments here, but let's just hope that September is a better reading month for me. What did you read in the month of August? Have you read any of the books that I read this month? If so, I would really love to hear from you in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to give it a big thumbs up if you enjoyed. It really helps my channel grow. Make sure to subscribe if you want to watch my future videos. I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. My social media links are are down below if you want to follow me on Tumblr, Instagram, or be my friend on Goodreads. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a stunning rest of your day. Bye, and I'll see you next time.